This video will explain some of the special symbols that we're going to need in order to translate statements in predicate logic. So we first need to introduce the idea of a predicate. So predicates are different properties. So a predicate could be the property of being red, the property of being a kangaroo, the property of being an elephant, the property of being a thing that can fly. So instead of symbolizing predicates with just a capital letter, like we did in propositional logic, we will instead symbolize them using a combination of a capital letter to signify the predicate and then a variable. And the variables will be the lowercase letters W, X, Y, and Z. So for example, KX could stand for X is a kangaroo. FX could stand for X can fly. And it really could be anything. We could say AX stands for X can fly. But we'll normally use a letter that corresponds to the predicate that we're talking about. So we use KX for X is a kangaroo, FX for X can fly. And actually post-pisal will indicate which letter in the predicate you should use by putting it in parentheses. So if you had the predicate kangaroo, he would put and he wanted you to use KX, he would put the K in kangaroo in parentheses. So that's just how post-pisal is going to do it. Okay, then next we need a way to refer to singular terms. So singular terms are usually named individuals, but they could be a place, they could be a thing, they could even be, maybe a concept. So we're going to use that pretty loosely, use the term individuals pretty loosely. And we're going to use the letters A through V to refer to these individuals, to the singular terms. So for example, we could have lowercase k stands for Karen, lowercase f stands for Fiona, lowercase a stands for Zach. Now you'll notice that I didn't say lowercase z stands for Zach. And that's because we can't use a z. Because remember, the letters W, X, Y, and Z are referred for use in variables. So we can't use it to refer to a singular term. But it's really arbitrary. We usually use a letter that sort of corresponds to the individual or thing that we're referring to, but we don't have to. We can say A equals Zach, and that's fine. We just have to specify it. And the way post-pisal will indicate what letter you should use if you're doing a symbolization of a singular term is it will be in square brackets. So like if you wanted you to use Karen, K for Karen, well, when he wrote Karen, he would put the K in a square bracket. If you wanted to use the A for Zach, well, he could either say A equals Zach, and that would tell you. Or, since there's an A in Zach, he could put that A in square brackets. And that would say, okay, when you symbolize Zach, use the letter A. Finally, we'll need a few new symbols for predicate logic. So, in addition to the letters used to symbolize predicates and singular terms, we also need a way to symbolize the quantifiers in general statements. The quantifiers we will be dealing with will involve words like all, none, or some. We will use the symbol, we're going to call it V, but it looks like an upside down A. Or we could just call it the universal quantifier. to stand for the universal quantifier. So that's when you have the words all or the words none in a sentence. And the symbol, we'll call it E or the existential quantifier. And it looks like a backwards E, to stand for the existential quantifier some. And finally, in addition, we will still be using capital letters, for example, the letter P, to stand for propositional statements. So there could be, mixed up with the predicate logic statements, there could be a propositional logic statement, sometimes. So we will still sometimes use just a single capital letter to stand for a propositional simple statement. And then, of course, we will be using all of the logical operators from propositional logic. The ones that we will use the most will be the ampersand and the arrow, the double arrow, well, and of course negation. But the double arrow and the wedge are going to kind of fall by the wayside a little bit. They'll happen sometimes, but they're going to be more rare.